If you're a photographer or videographer and you're feeling stuck charging $100,000, maybe even $2,000 per client, and you're feeling way overworked, way underpaid, and spending way too much time and effort for such little pay, then here's the good news. You actually have all the tools necessary in order to be able to charge high ticket prices to quality clients, but you just need to make a few shifts. In fact, there's 3. So when I researched the average median salary of a freelance photographer, I found that it's actually less than $50,000 a year, which breaks down to about $4,000 per month. So likely, if you're in this boat, my guess is that you're taking on multiple clients to make that $4,000 a month. But in this video, I want to show you how you can get one single client to pay you $4,000 and even a lot more than that for a single project, so you can take on only the clients you want, get paid a whole lot more, work a whole lot less, and ultimately get the freedom that you want from this industry. So you're probably wondering, who's this guy, right? So my name is Nash, and I'm a resort and brand photographer, and I work with some of the top brands in the entire world. Brands like Marriott, Four Seasons, Westin, Hyatt, and a whole lot more. But the reason I'm making this video is because I help creators exactly like you be able to work with their dream clients and charge high ticket prices so they can get that financial and time freedom and work for the brands that they actually want to work for and get paid well in the process. So if that's you and you are ready to take yourself to the next level, you can check out the link in the description below and schedule a call with a member of my team, and we can show you exactly how to take your content business to the next level. So without any further ado, let's jump into the 3 steps that you need to take as a content creator to start raising your prices. So you probably just heard that and you thought to yourself, well, can't I just charge more money for what I'm already doing? Is that how I raise my prices? And the fact is, that's what a lot of creators think, but it's actually a misconception, because if you're just charging the same clients or the same types of clients more money for the same types of work, then you're likely going to get denied, because you can't just charge more money for the same thing, right? You have to have an actual reason. So that brings me to step number 1, which is that you have to raise your value. So on a fundamental level, brands make purchasing decisions based on the anticipated amount of value that they're going to receive. So if you raise that anticipated amount of value they're going to receive, the more value you offer, the more they're going to be willing to pay for it. So then that begs the question, well, how do I raise my value? And what most people think is that just add more deliverables or deliver it faster, like 1 week instead of 3 weeks, right? Or maybe it's just taking on a bigger scope of work. And the problem with all those is that you're valuing yourself just based on your work output, which is not a great way to value yourself. And I'm going to get to that in step number 3. So all that stuff is fine, but it's not the main thing. The main thing we got to focus on is finding a bigger problem to solve, because the bigger the problem is, the more we can charge and the more they're going to be willing to pay in order to be able to fix it. So this is a mindset shift, right? So most content creators believe themselves to be a creative or somebody who just takes pretty pictures or does cinematic video or whatever it might be. And we need to shift that mindset to not just be the creative, but to actually be a content strategist, somebody who's in the corner with the client and actually is invested in their end result. So let me just give you an example of how this would look in real life. So a lot of content creators will reach out to a brand and they'll be like, hey, I can shoot 20 photos for you. I can do 10 reels, whatever it might be, right? But the problem is, what a brand hears is like, okay, we already have the content. So basically we're just building our content library for a rainy day when we might need something to post. And that doesn't seem that valuable. Now contrast that with you pitching, say, a 30-second ad, and maybe their ad creative is not that great right now. It's not performing that well. And you're like, hey, I'm going to make you something that performs 2 times better, 3 times, 4 times better than this. Would that be valuable for you? Probably so, because it's going to drive far more revenue. So therefore, instead of just having content for a rainy day that they can post sometime, hopefully, and get a few likes, then now they actually have something that can drive real revenue, meaning you're solving a legitimate problem in their business. Like, to be honest, let's think about this, right? If they have a creative that doesn't work well, not only did they pump money into creating this creative, but they're also pumping money into advertising it. So if we are just like, hey, spend the same amount of money, but let's switch out the creative. Yes, you're going to invest a little bit into the creative upfront, but you're going to get a much better ROI than what you are currently using now. And if they're not running ads, then that's even a better reason to come in and be like, hey, you're not running ads. Why are you doing that? You're leaving so much money on the table. Let's actually create some ads so that you can start generating more business. So that's the difference between somebody who's just giving a brand content versus someone who's actually solving a problem. So now that we got that taken care of, it's one thing to understand the value myself, right? And it's a whole nother thing to be able to communicate that value to a brand so that they actually understand. Because if I understand the value, but the brand doesn't really, and they just think I'm posting something on social media, then of course they're not going to be willing to pay me for it or be willing to pay me well, right? So we got to overcome that by communicating well. And the way we communicate value really comes down to messaging and branding. And that's what I call precision prospecting. Now, when I talk about precision prospecting, a lot of people think, finding the right person to talk to and sending them a message, and that's definitely part of it. But the main part of it is really hitting the right person with the right message at the right time, hitting the right problem and solving it with the right solution. If you can hit all 5 of those points at once, then you have the perfect precision conversion prospect. So that being said, it's not just the initial outreach email though. So yes, obviously all that stuff matters for your initial outreach, but also your messaging has to be consistent through your entire sales process, as well as once you make the sale and actually do the job. But the problem is if your message doesn't relate directly to the client's core desire, then your message is just going to fall on deaf ears and definitely not going to care about paying you. And therefore you basically just wasted your time and theirs, and the deal is probably going to be lost. So just to recap, step number 1 is to raise our value, and the best way to do that is by finding a bigger problem to solve and a better way to communicate that to the brand so that they understand exactly why it's so important that they solve it. Which brings me to step number 2, which is finding better quality companies to sell to, companies that have money. So brands have to be both willing and able to purchase your services. So if you have your value in the right place, they'll probably be willing to buy it, but if they just don't have the money in their wallet, then they're not able to buy it. So even if they're super willing to, if they don't have the money, they can't afford it, so therefore they won't be able to do it. So we need to get in front of the brands that actually have money. So that brings me to the question of how do I actually find these brands? And I'm going to give you 4 ways to easily find these brands. The first one is, do they sell something expensive? If they sell something expensive, likely they're making a pretty decent amount of money and they'll have excess to be able to afford to pay you. The second one is, has the industry been around for a while and will it continue to be around long term? Like if you're just going after fad industries, then the likelihood of longevity in that industry is very low and you're kind of just going to be chasing all the time. So that's why I don't like those. The third is, are they super profitable? Meaning, do they have great margins? So like some companies make a whole lot of money, but their margins are super slim. Like think a grocery store, right? They only make like 1 or maybe 3% margins. Terrible example of somebody who to work with. Whereas other companies might make 50, even 60% margins. And that's someone that you would absolutely want to go after. And then the last one is, are they actively spending money in marketing? And an easy way to do this is just go on Facebook Ad Manager and see if they're running ads. If they're running ads, that means they're investing into their marketing. They actually care about advertising themselves. So therefore, it would probably be someone who would be at least interested in having a conversation regarding marketing and content marketing with you. So now that we know some of the telltale signs of high-paying clients, I just want to give you some examples of maybe what would be a high-paying client versus what wouldn't be a high-paying client, just to give you kind of an idea. And of course, you could go for like construction or roofing companies, plumbers, law firms, accountants, like all these other high-ticket kind of services. But in my opinion, those aren't that fun to shoot for. Can you make some money? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't really care about shooting for them. So I'm going to give you some examples that I actually like to shoot for to give you kind of an idea of some other ones that you can work with. So my top one is obviously hotels and resorts, especially ones that are in the 4 and 5 star range, more of the luxury resorts, because they're going to have way more budget to actually be able to spend versus some of the smaller resorts. So that's really why I like to go for them. The second one being tourism boards, because tourism boards are always trying to push people obviously to go to their location. So they're going to have a pretty hefty marketing budget. Then you get into luxury guest houses and luxury just real estate in general. And for here, you want to make sure that it's a high ticket price, right? So like if you're going for Airbnbs, that's cool, but make sure it's a high ticket luxury stay versus just, more of a budget stay or something that's a little less expensive. Then you can get into like luxury brands. And I'm not just talking about like Rolex or Prada or something like that. Obviously you can definitely go that route, but I'm more so talking about just brands that are charging a higher ticket than kind of the industry average, just because obviously they have a brand name to keep up with and they're going to be more interested in content. Tech companies is also a great one. Typically they have pretty high profit margins. Anything automotive, so like motorcycles and cars are great, especially some of the more luxurious ones, the more expensive ones. And then the last one is airlines, but stay away from the budget airlines and just go for more of like the mainstream ones because they're going to have more of a budget to be able to actually pay. So now that we've gone over the good industries, let's go over some of the dicey ones that I would consider kind of a roll of the dice just to see if they actually have the budget. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't, but it's not kind of like a guarantee. So the first one's probably pretty controversial and it's apparel, unless it's that luxury higher end apparel, or if it's like a nationwide or a global chain. Those ones definitely have more of a budget, but if you're looking at more smaller startups, stuff like that, they're probably more on a shoestring budget and they probably won't have the money to pay out to you. The next one is local restaurants. Even restaurants attached to a resort a lot of times won't have the budget unless it's a very high-end restaurant or one that attracts a high-ticket crowd. The next one is local retail. So unless they have an online presence, they're probably not going to have a huge budget to be able to pay for content marketing. The next one is budget hotels. So basically anything below a 3-star, I wouldn't probably go for unless you're trying to shoot room photos. But even then, they probably don't have a huge budget to be able to do it. Maybe just a few $1,000s every few years. But anything less than a 3-star is probably not going to have a huge budget to be able to spend on lifestyle marketing. And then the last one is something I get asked about a lot, but I wouldn't recommend working with like local tour operators or local transportation or just anything in that realm, just because they're usually small businesses, don't have a huge amount of budget. And if they do have budget, it's probably going to be just a few $100, maybe $1,000. And it's just, if it's a cool experience and you want to go for it, sure, but they're probably not going to have a huge budget for you. So just to recap, when you sell to companies that have money, it's a whole lot easier than when you sell to companies that don't. So sell to the companies that have money. Which brings me to the last and final step, which is pricing based on your value versus pricing based on your time or how many deliverables you give them. So when I was first getting started in the industry, I literally had no idea about how to charge anything. And people would ask me for my day rate or how much I charge per photo and stuff like that. And I would have no clue. So I basically just made up numbers. And a lot of times it was severely undercharging just because I had no clue. But then after doing that a little while, I realized that if I just charge a day rate or if I just charge per photo, I'm kind of capping out the amount I can make, right? Because I only have so many hours in a day. I can only deliver so many photos. And at a certain point, I'm just going to be capped out on the amount I can earn. So just as an example, let's just say I was doing a photo shoot. It took about 3 hours. I charge $100 an hour. I'd only make like $300. But in reality, the client, once they used the content, was making significantly more than $300. So I started to realize that the clients were actually making significantly more money off of the content that I produced than they were ever paying me. Like the ROI was massive. So it really brought me to two conclusions. Number one, that my content was good enough to get results for clients. And number two, I should be charging based on the value I give them versus just the amount of time I spend on the project. So here's the problem with day rates and per content rates. It commoditizes you. So check this out. When you show up and you charge, say, $1,500 for the day for 8 hours, you are basically saying to the client that your value is only when you show up, right? When you show up for those 8 hours, that's the value. And then if you charge, whatever, $50 an hour for editing time, then your value is $50 per hour for those edits, right? That is your intrinsic value. But in reality, most of the value that the client gets is not in just hiring you to shoot the content or run the production and all that stuff. Like obviously that is necessary, but the main value they get is when they post it or when they put it on their website or when they run it as an ad and they start getting ROI or results on the content that you actually produce for them. So therefore, your value is not just showing up and shooting. Your value is the results you drive. So then the question becomes, well, if the value is based on the outcome and the results, then shouldn't we be charging based on the outcome and results that we get the client? And in my opinion, the answer is yes. So let me just give you a quick example. So let's say a client reaches out to us and they want us to create a 30-second ad. So we have two options. We can either price on time or based on value. So typically how a lot of creators do it is they're like, okay, so 30-second ad, that's going to take me about a day to shoot, probably about a day to edit. So therefore I'll charge $1,500 for the day because that's my day rate. Let's just say it takes 10 hours to edit times 50 an hour. So we're looking at 500. So that would be 15 plus 500 equals $2,000 total for the job. Pricing based on time. But check this out. So let's say we just step back a second and start asking the client questions so that we can price based on value versus just our time. Check out the difference. So first of all, we got to figure out what the client's even using this for. Like, yes, they're using it for an ad, but what are their goals? Are they using it on a billboard? Are they using it on OTT, like Hulu ads? Are they using it YouTube in-stream? Is it on TV? Like, where is the content being used so that we can actually understand what their overall overarching goal is? What problem are they actually trying to solve? So then when we know what kind of problem they're trying to solve, we can ask them, well, how much is it costing you not being able to solve this? Like, for example, if they're running ads right now, but the creative sucks, how much is it costing you every single month to not have a better performing creative? Like, let's say that we just 2x your performance. How much money is that actually costing you? Then we can even ask them their budget. Like, what are you expecting to pay for something like this? What is this worth to you? And sometimes you'll be expecting them to say something like $2,000, right? But they might say, oh, our budget's like $8,000 or it's 10 or it's 15 or it's 20, right? Sometimes you'll be absolutely shocked how much budget a client actually has for a video that you had no clue about before. And then the last question is, can I help this client get at least a 3 to 5 times return on their investment over the next 12 months, sometimes even 24 months? Like, let's just say, for example, we do a job for a hotel. They want that 30-second ad. I charge them $5,000. Is it possible that 5 times 5 equals 25? Is it possible that they can make $25,000 off of running this ad? Yeah, I mean, think about it. How many people just spend $5,000 on vacation? So you really only have to get 5 people in the entire year to book a vacation to make it a 5 times return on investment. That's like a no-brainer. So what about 10? Could we charge $10,000? And then if we multiply that by 5, could they potentially make $50,000 off of this ad? 100%, right? So when you start to do this, you start to realize that charging $2,000 is actually an absolute steal for the brand or the resort. And you should actually be charging based on the value you're giving them, the amount of ROI and the amount of just new business you're bringing them versus just how much time it takes you to do the job. So just to bring it home, the value that you bring is in the results that you drive for the brand and not just the amount of time you spend on a shoot. So the 3 steps are: number 1, raise your value; number 2, get better clients; and number 3, price based on your value instead of your time so that you can charge a whole lot more to only the clients you actually want to work with. So if you're ready to stop working with clients that don't value you, your skill set, your time, your value, and you want to scale your business so you can stop just taking on any project that's willing to pay you, and only pick the ones that you're actually excited about, that are willing to pay you the rate that you deserve, and just give you the freedom and creativity to do what you actually want to do. Then check out the link in the description below, book in a time with a member of my team, and we'll walk you through how we can help you scale your business using precision prospecting, where we can get you in front of the right people with the budget, with the type of passionate projects that you actually want to work on. But other than that, if you like this video, definitely go ahead and give it a like and check out the rest of the videos on the channel. We got tons of stuff on the channel, and it's honestly a goldmine. I get comments all the time of people like, how is this even free? Like, this stuff is not on YouTube. So if you have any creator friends, do yourself a favor and do them a favor actually by sharing the video. Obviously it helps me as well, but it'll help them in the process as well. So hopefully you found some value out of this video. If so, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.